Welcome to National Affairs. I'm Tasha Carradine.
And I'm Rudyard Griffiths.
Well, Rudyard, a big announcement today on employment insurance changes. We knew they were coming, but now we finally have some details. Human Resources Minister Diane Finley announced them earlier today. Let's have a listen to what she had to say.
Canadians on EI will be required to accept available work, which will always earn more money working than collecting EI.
So, Tasha, what's, controversial here, and it's not going to affect all employment insurance recipients, but some are going to be asked, in a sense, to take jobs after a certain period of time for pay that could be up to 70% less than what they were making at the job that they were let go from. This is obviously going to cause some big political waves, and to unpack it all for us, we're joined by Erin Weir. He's an economist at the United Steelworkers, and coming to us from Ottawa is Brian Lee Crowley, Managing Director of the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Brian, let me start with you. You've had a long-standing interest in employment insurance reform. What do you like in what you've heard and seen today? And also, frankly, Brian, where do you think they could have gone further?
Well, look, first of all, remember that the current EI legislation says that people have an obligation to look for work, and they have an obligation to take work that is suitable for them. What's happening now is that we're giving some definition to those things. Nobody knew exactly what they meant before. One of the things I like about this is the old system before these reforms was one that combined in a toxic way with seasonal work, especially in Atlantic Canada, where I spent 20 years, and I studied this quite a lot. In effect, people who are on seasonal work, the fishery, various kinds of forestry, tourism work, etc., very often didn't regard their annual stint on EI as being unemployed. It was just they had an annual entitlement to employment insurance, and they took it. I think we have to change the circumstances so that it's much clearer that people who are on unemployment insurance are in fact unemployed, and that they have an obligation to seek out work, and when that work reasonably matches their qualifications and their abilities, they should take it.
Erin Weir, is this an attempt to break what some people call an entitlement culture of seasonal workers, for example? Do you think this is fair?
Well, I think Mr. Crowley has actually perpetuated a bit of an old stereotype about Atlantic Canada. I mean, if you look at the numbers, fewer than 20% of the Canadians receiving employment insurance benefits are in the Atlantic provinces. The real issue here is that we've got 1.4 million Canadians officially unemployed right across the country. So the issue is that there aren't enough jobs. The issue isn't sort of, pushing people to take opportunities that, are allegedly out there.
But we do bring in workers, migrant workers, for example, to take certain jobs. So there are jobs Canadians aren't taking.
Well, I'm not so sure that's the case. I mean, the federal government has really expanded the temporary foreign worker program to make it really easy for employers to import foreign labor on a temporary basis. I think it would actually be very sensible to put a greater onus on employers to make those jobs available to Canadians first. I mean, the existing Employment Insurance Act actually provided what I thought was a pretty good definition of suitable employment. What the Omnibus Bill does is it essentially gives the HRSDC minister a blank slate to just redefine these terms by regulation whenever she wants to. So I think that's quite problematic from a process point of view. The other point I'd make is that the context for all these changes is that only about 40% of the officially unemployed workers in Canada right now are actually getting EI benefits. So, in effect, what the Conservatives are trying to do is exclude even more workers from this program that they've paid into and make it even harder for people to access EI. I'd like to see reforms move in the opposite direction to make benefits more accessible, to extend their duration, and really to help people out who are being laid off through no fault of their own as a result of a very weak and fragile global economy.
Brian, do you have any concern here that once these new guidelines are in effect approximately a year from now, you could see a situation where in some of these small towns, you know them well, in Atlantic Canada, workers who are on EI, it expires because they know it's going to run out if they don't find a job. And in this case, they may have to accept jobs that are as much as 70% less than what their previous employer was using them. Why wouldn't existing employers use that knowledge to their advantage to subsequently exploit those workers?
Well, look, remember that the new rules that we're talking about only kick in if people get offered a job. You know, if the issue is too much unemployment and not enough people are qualifying for unemployment insurance, how are these reforms relevant to that? The point of the matter is it only kicks in if you get offered a job. If there's no jobs available, you know, the issue doesn't arise. It seems to me very clear.
But Brian, you end up getting offered a job at 70% less than your previous job, and if you don't take it, then assume that EI check isn't showing up next month.
No, but remember that EI itself is much less than that share of your previous income. So don't forget, even 70% of your previous income is going to be more than you were getting on EI.
Okay, I've got to get Erin in for the last word here. We're going to be talking the politics of this after the break, but I do want to get a sense of where the labor movement is on this. The government doesn't seem to be overly friendly to unions in general. You're clearly opposed to these changes. What plans do you have to try and fight them if possible?
Well, I mean, certainly we're just going to make the case that there's a lot of unemployed Canadians. Unfortunately, most of them aren't getting employment insurance benefits as it is now. So we need to look at why that's going on and actually make the system better. And I think, you know, the Conservatives were convinced to do that, at least temporarily, during the Great Recession. They temporarily extended some of the employment insurance benefits. So I think we just need to kind of convince people that the labor market's still pretty weak, and there's a need for that rather than this need to sort of try to kick people off of benefits.
A great recession. Oh, good. Thank you, Erin, very much for joining us today.
Erin,
Thanks for having me.
Brian, an important chat, and no doubt we will do it again. This is an issue that's not going away.
Look forward to it.